Well, I decided that if you're going to do a video called Living Dirt Cheap Comfortably, you owe it to anybody uh, that tunes in a sort of a definition of terms. What's dirt cheap? What's comfortably? What some people's lifestyle that they find comfortable could be another person's horror. And Lori and mine's a lot like that, actually. A lot of people would not want to live like we live. Um, and what's dirt cheap, is it's such a relative expression. Sort of all of it's subjective. But let's get into dirt cheap. I'm figuring that dirt cheap is if you can live an alternative type of lifestyle that is going to be a lot cheaper than conventional living, which is either renting or owning the average size home, living in a neighborhood, a town, a city, where the costs are considerably more. Um, and that can get very, very expensive, obviously. And it's just like the videos that you see of people saying, "Oh, hey, I live in Mexico on $1,200 a month." Well, they do, and bless their hearts, I enjoy watching those videos. But what a lot of them neglect to tell you is that in order to obtain permanent residency in Mexico, you need to prove that you have an income of between $3,500 and $5,500 a month. Okay, so they're living in Mexico on $1,200 a month, but not really. I mean, if you need to be bringing in, say, average 4 grand a month to live there, then it costs you $4,000 a month, as far as I can see. I don't know. It's not exactly 100% logical, but at any rate. And so living dirt cheap has a lot to do with what you may or may not find comfortable. Lori and I live, as I've mentioned before, 90 miles from any real large city with multiple shopping options, groceries, supplies, that kind of thing. We live 60 miles from a small town that has one Safeway store. That's a small Safeway store, but it's a good store. And that has a health clinic. And 14 of those miles are bouncing down the mountain on rutted, dirt, rocky roads that aren't maintained. And sometimes in the monsoons, you can say, hey, let's maybe go into town. Uh, and you start heading out, and the road is washed out. It happens. Or you get stuck on the way back. Lori just mentioned, mumbled. Lori does most of the traveling these days, and for supplies, about once a month. I haven't left Hermit's Rest in 3 years, so I don't know if I should be doing this video. Lori probably should. It had been my dream for years. Ever since I was 7 years old, I wanted to be a hermit living in the wilderness, and I wanted to be able to see if you could stay literally in one spot for years. Well, I'm working on it. But thanks to Lori, I must say. But at any rate, uh, so we'll get down into the down and dirty of living in a very, very rural area, off grid. And off grid, I mean off grid, obviously no electricity. Came across a video the other day. A realtor selling property, a $200,000 home off grid, and it had electricity. Basically, off grid is starting to mean with some people living in the country. So be careful, the term off grid is starting to lose its essence. But at any rate, Um, we have, as I've said, dirt roads. It's a, you know, you're going to be going, let's see, 7, 8, 10 miles before you hit gravel, and then another several miles before you hit any type of simple asphalt road. And like Laurie mentioned, yeah, I went one time into the big city, 90 miles away. It was a beautiful day. Uh, on that, going that route, which cut down the 90-mile distance to 75 or 80 miles, required about 15 miles of dirt road before you hit the highway, the freeway. And everything was going fine. Got my supplies. Coming back, there'd been a monsoon, and the roadside river had overflowed. There was no road. It it was just an extension of the riverbed. Luckily, I was in an old, Jeep Cherokee that I'd, built up to be able to handle those kind of circumstances. That's the other kind of thing is that you can't live with on a Prius out here. You can't live with a cheap car. Basically, you won't make it. You need a 4-wheel drive vehicle, preferably a truck. Um, you need something heavier than the average SUV. If you get stuck, you're stuck. Uh, there are no roadside services that come out here. So when I moved out here 27 years ago, you could be waiting for somebody to come by, maybe to help you. You could be waiting 3 weeks before you saw another person. Now it's getting built up much more than that, and it wouldn't be that long of a wait. But at any rate, no roads. Um, so your average speed to go 12 miles down a dirt road could be 10 miles an hour. Do the math. It takes you quite a while before you hit any place where you can make any kind of progress or speed. So the 90 miles into the nearest city isn't just an hour and a half drive. I mean, it's a half hour just to get to the to any kind of pavement. No public services. Okay, so there's no water, sewer, electricity, uh, emergency services of any kind, police or medical. Um, Nothing. So, you've got nobody to call if you run into a bind. A lot of people would not find that comfortable. For me and Laurie, we don't mind and we're used to it. And it's a worthwhile trade off to be able to live, uh, on your own terms. You know, um, I've never found conveniences, standard conventional living conveniences, very convenient. They take a great deal of sacrifice of time. And I've lived conventionally and worked and such and had, a house, asphalt, pavement. Not that much in my life. I've spent most of my time really alternating between conventional living and still being a hippie, you know. Uh, just because I prefer that, I like it. It's my idea of a good time. Um, so those things might horrify people living like that. People might be worried about, oh, is it safe or whatever? Well, yeah, it's safe. I think it's safer than living in the city. But so one person's comfortable lifestyle could easily be another person's horror. Um, but that's just something to keep in mind. That if you really go into a rural area off-grid, you want to find some cheap land. If you can still find cheap land. You know what? Speaking of which, I know this video is going on a little longer than normally expected. I found some guys on YouTube that actually made sense on where you can find, cheap land or reasonably priced land. Excellent channel called Far Out Alaska. The guy is very, very clear. It gives you the demographics of Alaska and the various and sundry places. Um, Another channel, Wilderness Off Grid Alaska, is similar. I actually prefer Far Out Alaska. He has links and all that other stuff. As far as online, the one website that seems to be legitimate is called ruralvacantland.com. All one word, ruralvacantland.com. And it's a guy named Luke, and he seems to be pretty straightforward. He's got quite a few parcels currently listed. Most of them are in, it seems, rural sections of Arkansas. But hey, I saw a lot he had. It was very, very small, probably 25 feet by maybe 75 feet. I mean, it wasn't anywhere near a quarter of an acre. It might have been an eighth of an acre, but about $7,000. And it was actually approved for a tiny home. Hey, that's one of the real kickers, is to try to get county approval so that, you haven't built something and then somebody complains or the county comes by and says, hey, you're violating our zoning code. Get out of here. They could happen. That's where I went through some effort to get Hermit's Rest county approved many, many moons ago. And let's see, what was that? That was maybe $1,500 down, $300 a month for 9 months. Much higher than what I paid for Hermit's Rest 27 years ago, but for a much shorter period of time. The financing, 9 months. The other alternative, probably for simple living, economical and that kind of thing, is these people that are pursuing van life, but there's a lot of channels of people that say, I quit, I give up, I don't like it. There's one person that's doing a pretty good van life video, and it's a young gal, and she's in a little Honda Element. But what she's doing is she's actually not living in her van. She's just sort of sleeping in her van. She cooks outside. She spends most of her time outside exploring the United States. And she's been doing it for 6 years. And beautiful scenery, beautiful stuff. And that's about the only way you really want to live van life. If living in a van, you're not living in a van technically. You're just sort of sleeping in a van. You're going to be spending most of your time outside. If I was younger, I might give it a try, because it'd be kind of neat. Lori would probably like it. But there's that, and then there's RVing, But, I did that for a couple of years. Lived in a little 21-foot, Class C motorhome, older one. I was in that when I came out here to look at Hermit's Rest property. Now, where did I find Hermit Rest property? Well, believe it or not, I found it in the classified section of a motorhome magazine I was subscribing to. Own an acre of land for $3,500 to $4,500 out in northwest Arizona. I didn't believe it, so I called the guy up, and it turned out to be true. Asked him a few questions and decided it was well worth coming out to take a look at. And now when I say no water, what does that mean? Well, there's no tap water. There's no water service. But if you want to bounce down the dirt road for about 14 miles, there's a small, tiny town, has minimum facilities. But it has a railroad standoff, which is basically a public well that's owned by the railroad. And back in the days when I was hauling water with my pickup truck and a 55-gallon plastic drum, it was 25 cents for 55 gallons. You put your quarter in this huge pipe, like a fire hose. The water comes rushing out. You're trying to hold on to it. It was an experience. Now, I still kind of enjoyed that because basically, wow, you really appreciated your water. Over time, as time has gone on, and things have gotten financially a little more comfortable for Lori and I, we now have water delivered. So we have 2,500 gallons of water delivered um, for $160. May seem like a lot, but not really. And it lasts us 8 months easily. We go through about 6 gallons of water a day at the most, maybe 4 gallons of water. That's washing, keeping clean, cooking, drinking, that kind of thing. That's excellent water. It's beautiful water. It's deep well water. Um, but you take $160 and you divide it by 8, and that'll tell you what our water bill is. Let's see, what is that? 8 into 160, $20 a month for water. So you know. Let's see what. Oh, propane. We have propane delivery. That was a blessing. I used to lug, heavy, heavy, gigantic 25, I think they are, pound or maybe 50-pound propane tanks into the back of the truck, all the way down to little tiny towns, KOA. Hope that the KOA people are there. Get it filled up, put it in the truck, haul it all the way back. But it worked. It was available. And getting back to water, so we've got running water because basically you have a water tank. And what I've done to make things simple, I didn't plumb the cabin from the water tank to the cabin. That's why the lines freeze. I've watched everybody battle that. We just go out. We have a little 40-gallon holding tank inside the house, underneath the couch, and so we go out about once every 3 or 4 days, and with a hose from the big tank, 1,500-gallon tank, and fill up the 40-gallon tank, and then we have an a little RV pump. Turn on the faucet, and you've got running water. Want to take a shower? You take a shower. So I don't think we're sacrificing anything to live the way we are. No, a lot of people might not like it. A lot of complaints about van life, unfortunately, of people that are all of a sudden discovering, hey, hell, there's no room. Hell, I can't stand up. Or you got to move around a lot, or the police are knocking on your door, or stealth living and all this other stuff. I think the ideal way to do van life is like this young girl that Rosa is doing, and travel around, and she finds sort of, she boondocks and finds some camping stuff. But she's still going into towns all the time. For showers, they join gyms and that kind of thing. So, too much movement, too much hassle for me. But at any rate, it might be something to think about. And remember, dirt cheap is what dirt cheap is. I figure that if we wanted to live real, real frugally, um, up here at Hermit's Rest, we could get by on $500-600 a month. That's for a truck, insurance, registration, gasoline to go into the small town maybe once every 2 weeks. We haven't gone into the big city in years. I haven't left this place in years. Lori doesn't like going into the big city. She's very creative when it comes to cooking and buying groceries, so she gets by buying in a little small town at their a dollar store, if you can believe that. I don't know if she does it, but she does. But if we wanted to live on a simple diet, stay warm in the summer or in the winter, stay cool in the summer with a small little swamp cooler, running a little generator, along with our solar system, and the basic, cell phone, one cell phone, small, inexpensive plan, no internet, none of this YouTube stuff. Um, $500-600 a month, it could be done. Extravagantly living like this, you'd do well on 1,200 to maybe 1,400 a month, which amazes me these days because I can remember back in the old hippie days where I lived in a converted chicken coop for my monthly income was $30 a month. It was a big chicken coop. Don't get me wrong; it wasn't like a little one. Some guy had it in the back of his acreage and said, "Yeah, you can rent it for $15 if you want to fix it up." It had water. It had one electric line going to it. I salvaged a bunch of scrap lumber and used windows in the back of glass shops that they were throwing out when people were getting rid of their wooden frame windows and putting in aluminum windows. All the windows intact, all that. Go into the glass shop and ask the guy, hey, what are you going to do with the windows in the back? You know, you got by the dumpster. Give them to you if you'll haul them away. Oh, hell yes. So I wound up with a 1,200 square foot uh, uh, cabin and art studio that had one side all windows and $15 a month. I worked one day a week as a janitor in a restaurant, so I lived on basically $30 a month back there. Back then you could. That was in 1970, whatever. But at any rate, it's something to think about. But whatever you do, just remember that no matter what you plan, what I've found in life is happenstance. What's a wonderful thing. It's the mystical winds of happenstance that really take you to where you wind up quite often. And it's a fear gripping world. The system and the establishment wants you to be afraid. And so to be able to live like a lion completely free of all fear entails, some interesting mindsets. I might get into it one of these days. Some of my Buddhist and Eastern philosophy, studies, and we'll take it from there. But at any rate, I hope this explains what dirt cheap and comfortable is, because I'm not going to sit up here saying gosh, it's just wonderful. It is, but it takes a lot of work. I might have Lori come on here sometime because she runs the place. You ought to see what her little day, her day consists of. Up this, checking the solar, turning that on, turning the generator on if it's needed, filling the water tanks, all that other stuff. It's a house that you have to operate like a machine. No, I like it. She likes it. So, yeah, there you go. Bye.